Hi, I'm Maestro Attar, Music Director of the Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra. I'm thrilled to be here with you this Sunday to present our fourth PCO Presents. Today we will present another part of a Haydn symphony that we did not include in our last stream. This is a symphony titled Le Matin, the morning, as well as some music by a student of Haydn, a student who did quite well. You might recognize his name, Ludwig van Beethoven. This year, many orchestras around the world and musicians are celebrating his 250th anniversary. In the following interview, you will hear me talk to our former assistant conductor, Tim Ferran, as we talk about life, about the role of the assistant conductor, and of course the overture Coriolan by Beethoven, which was conducted by Tim. As always, we cannot wait until we can be back on stage to share music with all of you. But until then, please keep joining us for these Sunday performances. If you enjoyed these, please consider supporting us. We know you believe in our mission, you trust our vision, and your support will ensure that we will continue to deliver first-class music performances to our community. Stay safe, stay healthy, and enjoy the show. Hi everyone and welcome. I have with me today former assistant conductor of the Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra, Tim Ferran. Hey Tim, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you, Youve?
I'm good. So good to talk to you. We're far away. I'm in Bellingham and Tim is... Are you in State College now?
Yeah, I'm in State College still.
You're in State College. Great. Thanks for being with us today. So before we start, why don't you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your musical background?
Yeah, I'm currently just finishing up a master's in orchestral conducting and a master's in music theory and history from Penn State University. I'll be finishing up all of those, all my courses this semester. And at this point, I'm teaching music theory at Penn State as an instructor. Formerly, I've been with the Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra, I think, for about 4 years now as assistant conductor, as well as assistant conductor to the Penn State orchestras and ensembles and director of their campus orchestra for the past 2 years. And then I also have a degree in piano from Penn State University.
So your instrument is piano?
Yes.
So what draw you into conducting, or when do you remember first thinking, okay, I want to do this?
It was back, I was probably about 13 years old, and I was working with my piano teacher at the time, and I knew we wanted to get into learning some concerti at that point. So he said, go home, find Mozart's first piano concerto, print it out, and bring me something for next week. So I did, and I had really never listened to any pieces that were, not just solo piano. And so I printed out the score, and I thought the score looked kind of really quite interesting, and kind of just, I love the fact that you could see all these different instruments and the way it was all graphed out on the page. And then I listened to the piece and was watching the conductor, and I just found the interaction between all the different instruments to be fascinating. And so from that point on, I decided that I think that that's where I wanted to be, in this kind of much more communal atmosphere than purely as a soloist. And then I just started going through more piano concerti and then into other scores. And so I was fortunate that my pianist at the time was a professional composer. And so we ended up making our hour-long piano lessons a little bit more score study and orchestral training than piano for a while. He taught me how to read different clefs and how to transpose instruments, and he'd give me exercises, and we would go through. I would conduct him at the piano, and it was great. He was a great learning tool to really develop these things. And then he was a catalyst in getting me to go to some conducting festivals. So I went to the Bard Conducting Festival starting when I was 16, and got some experience, got to learn from people, and more and more. So when I came and started my university studies, it was always with the mind of going into conducting afterwards. And so I've always, I started right away doing lots of chamber music and accompanying people during their lessons and getting more experience and how these instruments operate, and how do we collaborate as musicians non-verbally together and make music in a group. And so that's kind of always been the path that I was on.
Do you remember what piece was the first piece you've ever conducted an orchestra? What was the?
When I was at Bard, it was the first time I was in front of an ensemble, and so I started in what they call the Discovery Institute. So it's just a string quartet that I had, and I did a little bit of Mozart's Eine kleine Nachtmusik. So that was a small group, and then the instructor thought that he seemed to like what I was doing and said, "Hey, I think you should maybe on Friday when they have the full orchestra day, we'll get you on the podium. You know, do you know Dvorak's Seventh Symphony?" And I said,
Wow.
well, I've been listening to it, you know, yeah. And so I luckily I had a score. It was a piece that I actually had fallen in love with. And I knew the first movement fairly well. And so I spent the entire week scrambling around and studying and getting tips from friends at the Institute. And then I got to conduct about half of the first movement of that
Wow.
symphony.
That's a hard symphony.
It is. Oh yeah. I can't say that there's a lot of weird rhythmic things. And so it was a lot of just concentrating, but that was my first full experience.
That symphony is a lot like a Brahms symphony in a way.
Yes.
Out of the Dvorak symphonies. And you've been a student of Maestro Attar at the School of Music.
Yes. Yeah.
What was it like studying with him?
Oh, he's wonderful. I was lucky since I did my undergrad at Penn State, and I knew I was going to be conducting from the very beginning. I would start by observing all his rehearsals, and then he invited me, and I was able to go and watch him during teaching other students before I was actually a master student of his. And he's a wonderful, wonderful musician, and he's got this wonderful passion and drive. And you can when you watch him conduct, everything is just completely embodied in his personality, and he's a lot of fun to work with in that way. And then as a teacher, he was great because he was all about bringing out what it was that was my vision of pieces, and helping me instead of being someone who was just saying do this or do that. He was asking me what my thoughts were, and then we worked in that way to develop those. And he was a wonderful, wonderful person, and I felt more like a collaboration than a student teacher. And I learned a ton from him over the last 6 years. I've been able to know him.
Yeah, I think it's very rare that you find somebody who's not just a great performer but also a great teacher. And he's definitely, a wonderful combination of the two. For those who are listening to us, can you explain a little bit, since you have the experience, of what is the actual position of an assistant conductor? Some people don't know, because you were assistant for the Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra, but you also said that you were assistant for the University Orchestra. So can you explain a little bit about the position of assistant conductor?
Sure. Basically, my job is to mainly to be another second set of ears in the hall, especially when we're in rehearsals, so that the conductor is on stage with the orchestra, immersed in the sound there, and then oftentimes I'm sitting out in the hall where I can then hear how the sound is being transmitted from the stage, because often it's a very different experience. And when we've, in Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra, we've played in several different places, and every different venue we have is a completely different sonic experience. And so kind of the main job there is to be able to then give feedback and say, which things are coming out, maybe which things, and what maybe this hall favors winds, and maybe this one favors lower strings. And so it's about, giving comments about how it's being heard in the hall. And then every program, I prepare the whole program, in case, say, Maestro Youve, if you want to go out and listen, then I might step up to the podium and conduct a little bit so that you can, or if something, God forbid, happened and you got sick or something, I would be able to step in.
I remember when I called you one time, there was supposed to be a snowstorm, and I called you and I said, "Hey, I might not make it," and I could hear the fear in your voice.
Yes, yeah, and that's what we have to be prepared for.
So out of you talking about all the venues, what was your favorite venue so far?
So far, it's been especially with the chamber orchestra of this size, playing in Penn State's new recital hall. It's about the perfect size of musicians for the way that hall is set up, and it's a wonderful. It's one of the most intimate places that we've gotten to perform. Not just we get fully surrounded by audience members, but also you feel like you can hear a drop of a pin would resonate in that hall. And so it's not one that nothing needs to be forced. Everything just feels like we can be as personal and intimate and as soft as we want to be, and the audience is right there with us. And then it makes everything else amplified above that.
So sometimes, I know from my experience, sometimes people tell me, they hear a piece that there's a lot of notes and it sounds difficult, but it's actually very easy to conduct. And sometimes there are pieces that it sounds pretty easy, but they're extremely difficult to conduct. The piece that we are going to play for the audience today on this stream is the Beethoven Overture that you conducted. Can you maybe talk to us about some of the challenges for conducting this piece?
Sure. Well, right from the very beginning, Beethoven mixes moments of full orchestra playing with absolute silence. And with a conductor, at any point, silence is a wonderful thing, but it also means that you need to keep your internal rhythmic clock going at all times, because when the music comes back in, you have to make sure that you're maintaining these tempos throughout, and there's no internal rhythm in the orchestra at that point. So it's your job to be mediating those. And the Coriolan especially has a lot of things that don't necessarily fall within kind of standard beats of 1, 2, 1, 2. There's lots of things happening on offbeats, or Beethoven layers things, so where one person might have something on one beat followed immediately by another person, another, and another, and they all have to gel together. It almost sound like there's one person combining all these things together, but in fact they're all different groups of the orchestra. And so there's a lot of different things going on at the same time, and several different layers. And so managing that and making everything being as clear as I can be and as rhythmically intact as I can, so that these things fall together in a way that is easy for the musicians to follow.
So I know you've conducted orchestras here in the United States and also abroad. You worked also with youth orchestras, university orchestras. What would you say the difference between conducting, a student group, for example, or a professional orchestra, in terms of where you are on the podium?
Yeah, well, when I'm in front of student groups, I'm there mainly as a teacher or an educator, and so my role is not only to rehearse and make a cohesive musical performance, but also in the process to be teaching things and developing their skills, so that when they enter the professional world, they are geared with things that will help them in their orchestral playing. And typically we have a lot more rehearsals to deal with, and so things can be broken down more, and there's a lot more of a discussion aspect. A university ensemble, I might be rehearsing for 6 weeks, maybe a couple times a week, seeing them. Where professional orchestra, we have about 3 days between when we first meet with the music and when we go on performance. And the great thing about working with something like the PCO is that they're all musicians that are trained at a high degree, and they're also musicians that it's a lot coming from this area of State College that kind of know each other, and there's a bit of a camaraderie between them. A lot of them play chamber music with each other. And so there's already a bit of relationship started there. But when we have to start rehearsing, that there's quite a limited time. They come prepared, but it takes a lot more of an efficient planning to get through everything. If you only have these few rehearsals, everything you do and say on the podium has to be of an immediate impact, because there's no chance to go back and redo something. It has to be as direct as you can make it.
So let me ask you something we all facing now. How are you as a performing artist dealing with all this COVID stuff?
It has been difficult. When it first started, we had a couple concerts planned still in the season for PCO, and it was sad to give those programs away that we've been preparing. And one by one, the rest of my performing engagements got canceled. And in the beginning of the summer, it was quite hard to even open up a piece of music or listen to anything, because it felt a bit sad and almost depressing, because it was just, we were in a point where I don't know when we're going to be able to do this again together. But as it's gone on, I've been doing, I'm fortunate to be able to play piano, where I have an instrument where I can still make music, even though I can't as a conductor right now. And so I've been getting back and I'm playing a lot of Bach on the piano and things like that. And then more recently, I've been able to go back and start looking more at orchestral music and not feeling such a sense of sadness, but almost an excitement, because there's orchestras, all over, a lot of places in Europe have now started opening up, and places in the US have started figuring out how we're going to do this, what are the new formats going to be, and we're all still in a zone of we don't quite know, but there's at least a little bit of a glimmer of hope of things coming up. And so now things feel a little bit more, music now is a little bit more of a reassuring place in my life at this point.
Mm-hmm. My last question that I asked all those who've interviewed, what has it meant to you, especially as a young conductor, to be involved with PCO in the last several years?
Well, as a young conductor, there's nothing better than to have an experience where PCO has been such an open environment for me, and everyone there has been very collaborative and inviting. And so for me to be able to get some of my, get my feet wet, some of the first professional things I'm doing in my career with people who are also there and willing to help. And I've known many of these people for years now, that it's been a wonderful time to, as a learning experience, as well as a very rewarding musical experience to collaborate with them. And so I feel like, even though sometimes, we only have maybe 3 days to rehearse with each other, in those 3 days are some of the largest learning experiences I have, because there's such an immediacy to anything that I do as an immediate effect in the orchestra. And so for me, I've been able to learn quite a lot, and I've been very grateful that, you've been very generous in giving me many opportunities here, and as well as giving me guidance and advice. And I feel like it's a place where it's a supportive atmosphere, and it's not the pressure of, if I make a mistake, it's that there's some people that are support system to help me and help me to learn from that. And so that has been the best thing of the past 4 years for me.
Well, it was wonderful for us, and we miss making music with you. So yeah, I know the audience is going to love the concert with you, as they did in the concert where you conducted. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope we see each other soon, and keep safe and healthy.
You as well, Yanni. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Hello, thank you for joining us for PCO Presents, one of many events in this virtual concert series. We hope you and your loved ones are healthy and safe in these times. I'm Larry Mraz, President of your PCO Board of Directors. Additional PCO Presents replays and other videos are available through the Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra website and on YouTube. For the PCO's latest updates, we encourage you to like, follow, or subscribe. If you enjoyed this, you can help PCO by sharing links and posts with your family and friends, whether they live near or far from central Pennsylvania. Every donation, no matter the size, will help as the PCO is planning for when conditions will once again permit our talented musicians to perform with you and others as part of a live audience in our community. To make a gift, become a sponsor, or learn more about the Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra Legacy Society or other things about the organization, please visit pachamberorchestra.org/support. Thank you for engaging with and supporting your Pennsylvania Chamber Orchestra. See you soon.